Do I miss coding a little bit? Of course I miss coding. I love it. And do I love kind of the fun time where I can just kind of like, people weren't like paying attention to literally everything I'm doing and like micro-analyzing it.
Who's Todd on the phone with right now? Oh my God. What's it mean?
Of course I miss some of those days, but you know what? I really appreciate what we built, and I appreciate the fact we built a great company. And is it a perfect company? No, there's plenty of things we have to fix, but I appreciate the grass is not always greener.
Welcome to Triangle Tweener Talks, a weekly podcast by builders for builders where we explore the startup journey from the idea to the exit and all the lessons in between with an exclusive focus on founders from the Triangle region of North Carolina. Tweener Talks is produced by Earfluence. Now here's your host, serial founder and general partner of the Triangle Tweener Fund, Scott Wingo.
Welcome to this episode of Triangle Tweener Talks featuring Todd Olson, CEO and founder of Pendo. According to public information, Pendo is a $250 million ARR business headquartered here in Raleigh, North Carolina, with over 900 people. And you can imagine Todd is a very, very busy person. So we really appreciate him carving out over an hour to sit down with us for an interview. To optimize our time with Todd, we recorded in the Pendo building at around sunset. So the visuals for this one are pretty spectacular. I know a lot of you prefer to listen to the audio version, but if you get a chance, check out the video version over on our YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors. Robinson Bradshaw, a full-service business law firm with a passion for supporting the Triangle entrepreneurial ecosystem. Learn more about Robinson Bradshaw's startup and venture capital practice at robinsonbradshaw.com. Bank of America. Bank of America's transformative technology group helps game-changing tech businesses and founders realize their boldest ambitions across a wide range of technology sectors. They have hands-on support, world-class resources, and an extensive network. B of A provides the stability and scalability that tech companies need to rapidly grow today. EisnerAmper. They're one of the world's largest business consulting firms with a dedicated technology practice offering outsourcing, accounting, tax, and advisory services. Their experienced professionals serve more than 2,000 technology companies, from early-stage startups to public enterprises. Discover how EisnerAmper's stage-specific solutions and industry expertise can help you. EisnerAmper.com/tech. Smashing Boxes, a Durham-based lean design-centric digital transformation company. And special thanks to our friends at Earfluence. They had a lot of work for this one. They had to carry all their equipment, and it was kind of complicated. So extra double, super whammy, awesome sauce, amazeballs. Thanks to our friends at Earfluence. I went into this interview a little curious about how to approach it, because interviewing someone like Todd is tricky. He's done so many interviews. I didn't want to just ask the same questions and get kind of what I call pull string answers. So when you've built the company for 10 years and you do a lot of media interviews, you get the same questions. So you just kind of have a rote or kind of a pre-planned answer. So I wanted for us to learn something new about Todd in this, and so I spent the bulk of my time not on Pendo. So if you came here for Pendo, apologize. There's a lot more information about that. But what I decided to dig into, based on our audience, is founders and people that support founders here in the Triangle. I wanted to really dig in and understand what makes Todd tick. Because I get this question all the time. That's like, why do you keep doing this? It's like hard and crazy. So why does Todd keep doing this? He's been, you'll learn he's started many, many companies. So, and also I know Todd relatively well, but just externally, he has this ability to focus and drill in and build a great culture. So, they're of the folks in the Triangle that's built a great culture, he's kind of, on the Mount Rushmore of that. And even more importantly, what he's done is he's built a rabid customer base. So if you had the fortune to go by Pendomonium, which is their trade show, briefly, and the customers there just love this product, and they want to learn everything about it. They want to tell more people to use it, and that's in many ways your best sales team is happy customers. He's executing across many, many dimensions. Sometimes you'll see someone really good at recruiting or the customer side or culture or super focused. Todd's the full meal deal. Here is my interview with Todd Olson, CEO and founder of Pendo.
Hey, Todd, thanks for having us at Pendo here. And I was glad we've had to move it a couple times because you're so busy, but thanks for taking the time. Also, it's after a board meeting, so I appreciate you must be exhausted. So Appreciate you doing this on a busy day.
Well, thanks for coming in, and I'm glad it worked out. I'm sorry for my schedule. It isn't it is what it is. But yeah, honestly, my energy's coming up, so I'm feeling good today.
Yeah, you said you guys closed some deals, so that's always good. Like ring the gong, kind of. That's nothing
100%.
more energizing than ringing the gong. So I love that. Do you guys actually have a gong? I think
We
I've seen
actually
one.
have a gong,
Okay.
and this one, because it was a special deal, we had a little bit of champagne, a little bubbly, and honestly, it's just the deal's great and it feels great. But it's like just being proud of the team and knowing like this was one of these deals that was a precedent center for the team, for the people that worked on it. I think I heard 54 people touched the deal across Pendo, which also shows that we're just really good at teamwork when we need to be. And
You must have
it feels
a
good.
heck of a CRM system.
We do. Yeah. We have a lot of systems, by the way,
Yes.
which is part of what we solve for people. But yes,
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah, very cool. Congrats on the deal.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So I started this newsletter, Tweener Times, and the first
I read
thing that you guys had done, I guess when we did it, it was called a non-deal roadshow, where you're a private company, you're kind of meeting some Wall Street people, and there was a
Correct.
really good note out. And I was sitting down to write that, and you and I have met a million times, but I've never gone into LinkedIn and looked at your background, and I thought it was really interesting, and I want to dig into it a little bit. But
Yeah, happy to.
my spoiler alert, I kind of came to the conclusion you've had this idea in your head. I kind of imagined Pendo was an idea 10 years ago and then you started, but it looks like you've been kind of like, working on it a lot longer, which I never really realized that, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, look, I've always been sort of fascinated about building, and I've been in what you would describe as application development tools nearly my entire career. And I think the early problems in application development tools, as you probably know, was like, can we build this thing successfully within a certain date of a certain quality, and folks actually use it? So I think early pre-cloud, pre-agile, it was pretty darn hard to actually build, ship software, design it, build it, ship it for scale and quality, et cetera, et cetera. So I spent a large part of my early career focused on that problem.
Yeah.
I think with the introduction of, again, agile and cloud and some of these other new technologies, it's gotten a whole heck of a lot easier to develop software, which has, to me, led to the next problem, which is, okay, now we have all this software. Is it actually serving the users? Is it actually delivering value? So me, I do think it's sort of a continuation of my career. I don't think it's like some radically new thing I just started doing. I've been in this world solving these sorts of problems since day one. So yeah, I do think of it sort of as a continuation.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back. So where are you from?
I grew up in Newark, Delaware.
Okay. Yeah. And then I saw you went to Carnegie Mellon.
Correct.
Yeah. Did you know you wanted to do technical stuff back then, or was there a journey?
So in between those two things, me being born and going to Carnegie Mellon, age 14, my mom was bragging to some local bank executive about her son being good with computers. And you have to realize being good with computers with my mother is like, I can turn it on, I can use it. This, for context, like, late 80s,
You could program the VCR.
I can program
Our
the
son
VCRs.
can program the VCR.
Yeah. So this exec kind of took interest. He's like, does he want to interview? So I interviewed. This was a bank, MB&A, which was a large credit card bank, ultimately purchased by Bank of America. And lo and behold, I got a job. At age 14, I had to get like special permission and all sorts of documents signed. And I started like the first month doing data entry, and that was boring, admittedly. And after a month, someone came by, just literally walked by and plucked, hey, you're supposed to be good with computers. Come with me.
Yeah.
He brought me in. He put me in front of a spreadsheet, pre-Excel. This is 2020. This is a green screen.
And
And
like VisiCalc or one
it's
of these.
2020. It was
Yeah.
called, yeah. And it's I think it was just post VisiCalc, just pre-Excel in that world. And
Yeah.
he showed me how to do his job. And then after a week of doing it, which also was boring, by the way, I started figuring out that they had this thing called a macro programming language. So I started looking through it, and I said, I think this is going to automate this entire job. So I did that. So I basically built programs to automate basically this analyst job. And then I went to him, I was like, hey, I'm done with the work, and I'm only like, a minute in. Like, what do I do next? And eventually I started automating more and more things. And then they're like, okay, we need to put you somewhere else. So they put me in this IT closet with a bunch of people. And
You just eliminated my job.
Yeah, like self-taught Unix, C++. Like I just learned how to code, and I got sort of like just like taken away by technology at a pretty early age. And I sometimes tell the story, but like I had a nickname of Super Todd because I could just fix things with computers. And a lot of my, I guess older contemporaries could not do it. And I was pretty good under pressure. Like I could be in the room with a senior vice president and something could be broken and they would put me there to fix it because I also didn't realize what a senior vice president was. Like for me, whatever, like they told me to fix this thing. So
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I didn't feel the pressure that other people felt. I was also an hourly employee, so it was a good arbitrage moment for them. But that's where I really got attached to technology. I think the cool thing about that story is that I wasn't hired in IT. I was hired into the business. So I had this business acumen because I was sitting with the business. I understood what they're trying to solve. And then my job, I felt, was to take this technology and sort of contort it to solve these business problems. So that was my early introduction to technology. Carnegie Mellon to me was like, okay, I'm kind of like a self-taught hacker working for a bank. I should probably like go deeper, go wider, like understand the fundamentals. So I went to school for electrical computer engineering. I want to understand like, how the computers are made, how they design. So I kind of went deeper on microprocessor design and took a lot of software classes like operating, like the classic CS courses. And I felt like that would like round out my skills. And sure enough, yeah, I think it was a good choice.
Yeah. Cool. Did you ever take a compiler class? Those are my favorite.
I did, no, I did not take compiler. OS, microprocessor design, I think cool thing. I got designed silicon, which not a lot of people have done, and it worked. So yeah, it was a great experience. Carnegie Mellon's you work a lot. I spent most of my time in computer labs. What I remember is being in a computer lab at 3 a.m. and I didn't dislike any of it. I actually loved it. So yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, cool. So you graduate and you've worked at a bank. Were you craving? Were they kind of wanting you back?
Oh my gosh, yeah. They just assumed. Actually, it wasn't they wanted. I think they assumed because each summer I would come back and want to see my family but my senior year in college I met Eric Bodick and he had informed me of some ideas. The internet was just being invented. This was like the early days of the web browser. And he knew that my background was working in a bank and working with large databases, and I was good at that kind of stuff. And so he started forming this idea like, hey, you're good with databases. There's this internet thing. Like, what if we put these things together? Like, what if we bring data from databases and put it on the internet? And this is like very early. Like, there are no app servers. Java hadn't even been invented yet, by the way. So I was writing in some scribbly languages. And so we started a consulting company helping businesses in Pittsburgh basically bring old school data to the internet. And through that experience is when we sort of birthed the idea of the first company we started, which was first named Vision Systems, but became Cerebellum Software.
Cerebellum, okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Eric went back that far.
Yeah.
Did you guys go to high school together or something?
No, we met in college. We probably met his junior year, my sophomore year. He's a year older in school, but yeah, we spent a good amount of time, starting probably my sophomore year, but then I dropped down to a part-time student my senior year, and I worked full-time and was a part-time student. So yeah, and that's when we started, like in earnest, like raising some capital and building the business.
Cool. So Cerebellum was venture-backed.
Yeah, it started as a consulting company. So we had revenue since day one, but then we raised first to friends and family, and then we had venture funds involved.
That's cool. How old were you?
Company started, I was 20. I couldn't drink. I remember that part. The
champagne ring the gong. You were like,
yeah.
You had to have apple spritz.
And I was pretty goody two shoes back then. So no,
still are 100%.
But yeah.
So you raised from friends and family. Did that company have an exit?
No. This is like incredible heartbreak. It's like we raised friends and family to build a product. We built a product. We got a little bit of traction, but to be honest, this is before the term product market fit was actually coined. We did not have product market fit, shocker.
In hindsight.
We didn't have product market fit. We didn't obsess over it. It was.
You're probably too early. Like you saw so far ahead. People are like, wait, what's the internet? And you're like, let's build a database on it. And they're like, whoa, Tiger.
Yeah. We actually built a product to do database federation for the internet, which there are products that came way after us that were successful, but we were way too early. I learned so much from that experience. But there was a day where the the board called us while we were at lunch and they said, we're going to have to get rid of, I skipped a little bit. I apologize. So what happened is we had an acquisition offer. I realized that, with the cash in the bank, we started cold calling people. One of the folks we were targeting were application servers, the Java application server market. So we ended up getting an inbound acquisition offer from Silverstream, which was a Boston-based VC-backed company. Actually, they're a public company at that point. We had agreement. So it was like, signed an LOI. This was done. I wouldn't say I was counting my money, but I was feeling pretty darn good. And then this was the height of the internet bubble. So our board sees, a 21-year-old and a 22-year-old or 22 and 23-year-old negotiate this deal. And they're like, this has got to be too low. You need a banker. So they threw out the agreement. They hired a banker and said, we're renegotiating this because we think this is worth 2 to 3 times more. Now, by the way, the multiple on that deal, the original deal, was a crazy multiple. It was probably 20 to 30x. They somehow thought that we should get 40x or whatever, and really pissed off the CEO, created the entire relationship. And at that point, that company who had given us an LOI had bridged us to the transaction. So they put in a little bit of money to get us to the transaction. But that's it. We had a bridge to the transaction. It didn't happen. So yeah, that's when the board called and said, look, we have to obviously shrink our spend. They did keep me, poor Eric. They kind of got rid of basically everyone who wasn't an engineer because they wanted to take the assets and do something with it. I got super frustrated.
You learned picking your board and investors is very important.
It was a heartbreak. It was the right outcome for the business. And after that,
selling in V1 was the right outcome for the business.
Yes. Yeah.
In hindsight, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but look, I learned a lot. I did have to lay off a whole bunch of people that day. That was, I was a really young person. That was I guess you could call it a good experience, but it was terrible, and I joke with people. That's when I actually discovered alcohol for the first time. So not a terrible way. I don't have a problem. Don't worry. But there's no question that was very humbling. But I guess a couple things happened from that, which is important for me, is that I knew that if I could do it once, I could do it twice. I was like, if I can get that close at this age, I could definitely do this. So it gave me a confidence, as a person who grew up working at a bank, I just assumed to work at a bank, have a picket fence, whatever, family. And I was like, I could be an entrepreneur. This worked, and that's, I think, been sort of how I now think of myself. But it wasn't until those times early that I actually really thought of myself as, okay, this is who I am probably.
Yeah.
So
how big did it get?
We had,
number of people.
Over 70, close to 90.
So you got a 23 and a 22-year-old managing 70 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
until you do it, you don't realize you can, and then you're like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I learned a lot. Actually, we split up the world. I ran HR for some reason. At the time, we didn't have an HR system, so I was hand calculating taxes for people's paychecks on giant tables. I mean, this is pre a lot of things. So you learn a lot.
They didn't have Gusto just kind of do that for you?
Yeah, no. There was no Gusto, nothing back then. But yeah, you learn a lot, and it was obviously a formative experience. But then I was finding myself sort of not really doing. I mean, they were paying me, but then I was sort of really bored, and that's when TogetherSoft, which is a Raleigh-based company who we were partnering with at the time, discovered I was sort of doing nothing, and the CEO was like, well, this is interesting, and that's sort of what really brought me to Raleigh.
Yeah, we owe TogetherSoft a lot for that.
Oh, yeah, I owe a lot TogetherSoft a lot. So
yeah, I've met those guys. What were their names?
Well, Peter Code was the CEO, and he's the guy.
He's famous, right? He's he's a famous tech guy because of entity relationship diagrams.
Yeah, or mapping, things like that. Yeah, object relationship.
This is old school.
Very old school.
Rational.
Peter Code. So we competed in disrupted rational. Actually, our product was incredibly good. So, and they had this issue where they had a team of engineers in Russia, and they needed someone who would fly to Russia and manage this team of 250 people. Now, mind you, you just heard the largest company I had ever managed was I think we got to maybe 90. And they're going to hand me a team in Russia of 250 people, and I had never really left the country. So
did you have a passport?
I had to get a passport, and they helped me get a passport, and they moved me to Raleigh because all the executives were here, and I had a small team here, 30-ish people here. and I had 250 people there. And they got
Was this
me
like in Moscow or like
St. Petersburg? I'll never forget. They put me on a plane. They sent me to St. Petersburg, and the first thing you do is you have to get rid of the head of the office. Like, go fire him. And I was like, okay, like I can do that. And then I, of course, took over and then like established new leadership and took over. But it was, incredible experience. I ended up spending 10 days a month or more every month of my life for like almost 3 years, traveling back and forth between Raleigh, which like I had to fly Raleigh, Dulles, Frankfurt, St. Petersburg, and then I made a small team in Prague, so I'd loop through Prague and then back, but that's like,
you probably still have some miles from that.
Yeah, I still have some miles. I have a lot of experiences. That's like trial by fire, but it was like an incredible company. We were doubling, it was a real software company. I learned so much around if the first company was me just figuring it out myself with Eric, this one was like, it was a real software company. I learned how things are done. And interestingly, like one of the, Peter eventually departed and they put in a new interim CEO, a couple. One was a guy, Bill Vrolok. He worked at like Silicon Graphics and brilliant technologists. Like I learned so much from him. And then Jeff Lunsford, who's now the CEO of Telium, who are still very close friends. He took over and I worked for him very, very briefly. So great experience. And I learned managing Russian engineers isn't very different than managing U.S. engineers. Like that's one thing I just assumed was going to be really different. It really wasn't as different as I thought. But it also gave me experience because at Cerebellum, I built all the code from scratch. I knew everything about the code base. To take over a massive code base and not having written a line of code in it, I kind of had to exercise different management muscles and think differently about how I lead the business. I also, the funny thing is, TogetherSoft didn't have product management. So I actually did product management. We just didn't call it that at the time. Product management as a discipline was pretty nascent back then. So that also, you could argue that if I hadn't had that experience, like Pendo may not be what Pendo is because I essentially did that function
you were in the
on.
Seat for a long time and felt the pain.
Yeah, and I did all the analyst relations and I talked to Gartner and I got us in multiple Magic Quadrants in the upper right. So like, I lived that experience firsthand, and that was a great one. So,
yeah, folks in that part of Europe are tricky to manage because they're wicked smart, but they also, culturally, they don't want to tell you things are bad or going wrong. So everything's always like, very good, and then you're like, your spidey sense is tingling. And you're like, I don't think you're building what we think we're building, and like all's good.
Yeah, and look,
did you kind of learn some interesting things managing a?
Yeah, look,
team like that?
I'm a very hands-on leader. I think even today at our scale, I'm still, I would say, a hands-on leader. I'm in it, and I think one of the ways I stay in it with respect to products is I'm using products constantly, every drop of every product. And those days, I was an on-premise software. So I'm like, every drop I'm touching, playing with, providing feedback. I'm with the teams. I'm going to meetings if I need to. So I'd say that's sort of the way I lead. I wrote every single defect for years. I ended up knowing the product really, really well, despite not having written the code, because I was probably the biggest user of the product. And I think that really helped me steer it. Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then somehow Borland intersected in there.
So Borland,
they bought Borland, right?
Well, this is, we decided as a company, we thought we had to cut out the IDE. So we ended up building an IDE, TogetherSoft, that obviously started attacking Borland a bit. They wanted to figure it out. So they basically bought the company. And interestingly, I thought it was a bad deal. I and a few other execs that were at TogetherSoft called the board and like, please don't do this. Like, and at the time, the founders had both left. And I think the founders were like, let's get a payday, which I totally respect. They had the ownership, right? But I was bummed. Like, we were winning.
Yeah.
Like, we were building great product. We were winning. We were really winning. And to sell, I was like so sad at the time. But by an interesting turn of events, like the person who bought the company essentially was Frank Slootman, which of course no one knew who he was at the time.
Wow. Holy cow.
I got to work directly with Frank
That's
Frank
cool.
for basically a job before Data Domain for him, which was honestly an amazing experience. He's an amazing executive. And
for folks listening that don't know Frank Slootman, he was then CEO of Snowflake.
Most recent and ServiceNow. Yeah, he's a legend.
He's like the king of SaaS, large SaaS.
And he honestly,
right up there with Benioff.
He's an amazing leader. I mean, I learned so much just watching him operate. So like that was a really cool experience.
CEO thing. He does a lot of speaking now about like the cadence and setting the pace. Did you even see that back in those days?
Oh yeah, there was no slowdown with Frank. It was always go, 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 go. And I think that's why he liked me. Remember at that time, I was probably still 26.
Yeah.
And I could keep up. I had no issues keeping up. I loved it. I was like a sponge back then. So like, and then interestingly, part of the acquisition is for me to move to the Bay Area. And I almost did. I mean, I committed to doing it. I was like going back and forth. But then Frank left. And that's part of why I never moved to the Bay Area, because his replacement just wasn't Frank. I think if Frank had stayed, who knows if we'd be talking about even be here in Raleigh, because like I had committed to going there, but just through a turn of events and like, you know, all my family's on the East Coast. It's just like, it was pretty fascinating how it all turned out. So
Didn't the Borland CEO famously, like they went public and he spent a ton of money on a building and then it ended up distracting and they just totally missed their numbers for like a year because he got distracted by this building.
His name is Philippe Kahn.
Oh, yes.
And there's a thing in the back, a sculpture garden that is affectionately referred to as Conhenge. Yes, I've walked around Conhenge, which I had an office in that building, which was quite nice. But so he wasn't there when I was there. Dale Fuller was there. Dale was famous for basically extracting cash from Microsoft for anti-competitive practices. So Microsoft, for those who don't know, the entire C# programming language was built by former Borland engineers, Anders Hellsberg. They like basically recruited, and they had cars. Microsoft was set up at a hotel near Borland. They'd send cars wrapped around and just like pluck people from the building all day long. And eventually, that is against the law. So, so I will say, Dale, I think he got $250 million, which honestly is what was the catalyst for regrowing the business and do acquisitions, and ended up being like it almost served as funding, which was. So kudos to him, and Borland had pivoted to an enterprise business, hence why they bought TogetherSoft. So like it was an interesting time, but departures, other things. I mean, it was not my it was a learning experience for me, but I think after my 1 year was in, I think I was ready to move on, and I knew I wanted to start something.
Yeah, another interesting celebrity from that era. There was this company at my first job called Pure Software, and we were a big user of it, and I loved it because it would like go debug the code for it in a way nothing had ever done before. Like the IDE would get you a little bit, but this thing would just like say, there's a memory leak right here. And I'm like, So then the CEO calls me one day and he's like, will you do, and I was like raving to their folks about how it had helped me save all this time. He's like, will you do a testimonial? So I did this video for them. And that was Reed Hastings. Yeah, and then they got acquired by Rational, who competed with you. And then he became CEO of Rational, right?
Yeah.
And they started this company called Netflix.
Correct. And I knew all these people really well because I was the one who was assigned to, there's this like open source project called Eclipse. IBM realized that the existential threat wasn't all these companies, it was actually Microsoft. So they created a development environment because they realized whoever owned the developers' like hearts and minds was
developers.
Exactly. So Microsoft was doing a good job. So IBM's like, the only way that we can win is do an open source version and get the Borlands, get everyone else on our side, the Rationals.
It's the Battlestar Galactica strategy.
I was on the board of Eclipse, the founding board. I was on the board for several years, actually. And I represented both TogetherSoft and I represented Borland, both on the board. And I got really close to the Rational people because we were on the same board. And we realized like the ultimate threat is not each other. It is this behemoth in Seattle or Redmond. So I think it takes me back, but fun time, good learnings.
Cool. So then at some point you start Sixth Sense Software in 2004 is what LinkedIn says. I don't know if.
Yeah, it feels right. Look, I left and look, what was my experience? I was like running around the world, managing a bunch of developers. And I was like, it's really hard to manage all these developers from around the world without actually physically going there. So I came up with the idea, I was like, we need analytics. I'm like what's going on with developers and like, are my projects going to be on time? Like, how can I get like automated status report rather than like going around like asking people manually, like, are you doing this? Is this done? Right. So I came up with this idea as like development teams need like essentially business intelligence to run their shops. And interestingly, this was another idea that's like way too early because now there's a bunch of companies doing very, very well in this space. And they basically did what we did. But we built. That was the premise of the business. That was also the first time I've ever built a cloud company. So we were multi-tenant SaaS from day one. And wow, we built a cloud-based multi-tenant BI solution. I basically took all this open source stuff and I hacked it to be multi-tenant, and it was really sophisticated at the time. Very interesting work.
But 2004, there was no AWS. So you had to
servers,
you had servers and
you name it.
were you over to hosted solutions or?
Yeah. I was at Hosted Solutions.
Did we run into each other at that point?
I don't know.
Yeah. Channelvisor was 2001, so I was 3 years in, and we were building SaaS too.
Yeah,
I feel like we had to run into.
I think we were right next to each other too.
I remember being in meetings when you were at Rally for sure.
I was at that terrible building right across from right behind the outlet mall there. So yeah, I remember that vividly. So I used to eat that Greek kitchen thing almost every day. But those were interesting days. But this is another challenge where we raised money from Inner South.
Whoa!
And
old school.
We're like, yeah, we can get this thing out and we can get some revenue in, 8 months, or 6, whatever the number was. It was wildly optimistic. And then what you do is you rush product. You start prematurely scaling sales. And it's and the other thing about this is I came up with the idea, I wanted to launch a company, but I was like, I really need a business guy to lead this thing. I'm not a business guy, I'm a technologist. So I recruited the head of sales from TogetherSoft to be the CEO of the company, Greg. Great guy.
Greg, what's Greg's last name?
Burnell, Burnell, and great guy. I don't think I understood what the decision meant when I made that decision, because I was like, I still get to set core values and do other things, and I think, but I realized VCs, when they see the CEO, does treat the CEO very, very differently than essentially everyone else, and had a lot
particularly that generation of VCs. There was not a lot of respect for the tech founder.
It had a lot of unintended consequences that. Not only doesn't think it was great for the business, it certainly wasn't good for me. And I think that company, it was a challenging time to be in as well. So we ended up having an exit in 2008, which is, everyone knows 2008 is one of the Sequoia, so I think that was a tough time. But we never got to product market fit, and we burned through cash. And
was the idea an Atlassian suite, or this was before really Agile, or Agile was kind of
almost Jira was just not even really not a thing. This was pre-Agile tools even. We ended up selling to Rally Software, which was an Agile tool. So I would say that it was certainly of that genre. I think my idea was look, if you're in the complaint, of course, we got was Big Brother, because we were capturing crazy amount of metrics about what engineers were doing. But it's how do we get more efficiency out of engineers? What engineering teams, what do we learn from? People were out doing, outsourcing was huge back then to India and Eastern Europe. How do we get visibility on what our outsourcing providers are doing? So that was the vision of the product. And we got some traction and we got some customers, but it wasn't people's first problem. So when we got to 2008, a couple things happened. One, the board, I think there's just, issues going on. I think Greg maybe wasn't the right fit at the time or what have you. And so I had to work through a CEO change of the board. So I did become CEO probably in the last, 9 months of the business, roughly. And then I was like, hey, you have no cash in the bank. Figure it out. And so we went on a tour to either raise capital or sell the business. I was comfortable with either. I was fully prepared to run the business. And honestly, it was a great experience for me, because I took over this team and I said, look, folks, we have 6 months of cash left. I remember this town hall. I am going to be transparent with you in every single week on what I'm doing about it, what our plans are, and you're going to know what I'm going to know. And I'd appreciate if you stay, because if you all leave, I'll have nothing really to sell, because I need some assets and some technical people. And you know what? I didn't lose a single person during it. Actually, some people work here that stayed during that.
Transparency has a way of building some loyalty. Yeah.
I learned a lot about transparency. I think that was sort of my formative experience there. And then we did get a transaction. We got a transaction done December 31st, 2008, just before we ran out of cash. So Rip Good Times was September. So you were, it's kind of like COVID, but it was, in some ways it was worse than COVID, because There wasn't a bounce.
There wasn't a bounce. Things were going down. There was, we had a problem at Channel Advisor where we had a money market fund where it broke the dollar. And we were like, all our money in the bank is at risk. And and we were like, we just raised like a 20 million. And we're like, oh my God. Like, it was like scared. Like the whole financial system felt like it was crumbling. It's in hindsight, it's hard to like create the amount of. So yeah, that was an incredible deal to get done with that backdrop.
It was, and we had two. This is the crazy thing about we had two offers. I turned down Rally first. And then the other one fell through. I had to go back with my tail between my legs. I was like, look, I know I turned you down, but we're open now. And you know what? They didn't take advantage of the situation, good, honest people. And here's the cool thing. Every single person that stayed with me got a job offer from the new company. We had no disruption of benefits, simply nothing. And I think that was...
And that time having a safe harbor was extremely valuable.
Look, it's
having
a safe
job,
landing.
Having benefits from 08 to 09 was hugely valuable.
And then fun fact for investors that actually stayed investors in Rally. Rally did go public in 2013. They actually got returns. Now, the ones that gave up or maybe didn't hold on to the shock or did whatever, like they would have not made money. But if you held on to the money, you actually made money. And that is informative for Pendo because the first seed check came from one of those investors. First seed check. So that it was the fact that I think took over this company was 6 months of cash, and I turned what they had considered nothing into something, showed that, look, if you can create nothing into something, maybe if you ask more than nothing, more can happen. So
was 6 cents a stock transaction into Rally basically?
Yeah.
And then that had a...
So ultimately, was it the outcome we expected? Of course not. Like I'm not by any means I'm trying to brag about this at all. No, No, we did not do. My job is to return, money back to our investors. Did I do it to the level? No, I didn't do it to the level.
I'm not a math genius, but something is greater than zero. So
I think so.
And if they got their money back,
I got humbled a lot when I was raising money for Pendo at first. Like, don't brag about that. That's not something. I was like, okay, fair enough. Now, granted, if they invested in Pendo, they would have been fine back in those days. But look, a lot of lessons from that. Rally, and then being there was a really great experience. As I said, the company went public in 2013. I had the opportunity to. They were awesome. They're like, hey, do you want to work on the S1? I'm like, sure, I'd love to work on the S1. So I helped write, co-authored the business section of the S1, and I was in every drafting session. I built a lot of relationships with bankers. I know a lot of the financial analysts. By the way, some of the same financial analysts then who covered Rally are now covering Pendo, so they remember me from back then, which was actually pretty powerful. I think the CEO was really good at just sort of, he didn't want to be in some of these things, and he really gave me this opportunity that I don't think every company would have done. And
so did you write like the MD&A kind of part of it, or?
Like from like the first paragraph on, and we were looking at other S1s, we're copying, but it was incredible. Also, just being in the room and hearing like, okay, there's this new constituent called public investors, and this is what they care about. And so you start thinking differently about your business, and you realize this is a whole different exercise. It's a different muscle you're building. But I think it was that to me, and then in filing, like I never forget when we filed. My son, who's now 28, he was 16 at the time. He was with me, just like hanging around Denver, and I'm like, we filed this thing, and I was exhausted. And we have this thing called drafting. Basically these drafting rooms, and there's like pool tables in it because you're waiting for this physical book to be printed. It's a crazy thing. But then we're done. Like I was like, let's go hike a 14er. So we the next day got a crack of dawn and hiked a 14,000 foot mountain, which I think they did wipe me actually physically after that. But just really memorable experience.
Yeah. So Rally, for folks that don't know, Rally was agile software.
Agile software development tool. So very similar to Borland. You could argue like basically the same space, very similar to Rational. So my background in all those other companies was very, very relevant.
DevTech, you're on like your third or fourth DevTech.
And it became sort of like a thing. I definitely a specialty, and I leveraged that. So
cool. Did they do NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange?
New York Stock Exchange.
Did you get to go?
Got to ring the bell.
Very cool.
And
was that when the CNBC set was on? Were they on there by then?
Yeah, Kramer was there. Look, there's a Fabergé egg in the New York Stock Exchange, which is an amazing thing. Like we had breakfast there. Like look at great experience. But I can tell you, when I was on that stand, I was looking out, and I just kept thinking, this is not my company. Meaning, yeah, I sold a company to it, but like it fueled something inside of me. Like, okay, I got here now, but this isn't my company. I got here with another person's company. Like, I got to figure out a way to do this myself. So like, I think I left shortly thereafter. Like, in part because honestly, the exciting part is actually writing the document, waiting actually to go public, and there's some other things.
Did you get to go on the roadshow and kind of watch that?
I did not go on the roadshow.
Who was lead left on that?
Lead left was Deutsche Bank.
Wow, that's a deep cut.
There's an interesting.
I did not. Todd didn't know that question was coming. That's like, it's good memory.
Yeah. Well, I remember this originally it was Barclays, but then there's an issue with the Barclays banker. Then it was like Deutsche. So, but yeah, look, good people. I did. The CEO was awesome. He said, like, here's the roadshow deck. You record your version of it. So like, I remember sitting in a hotel room and doing like my pitch, and like, yeah, I think he borrowed some of that, and he did a really good job. I mean, honestly, successful transaction. Team was awesome. I learned a lot. Yeah, good people.
But it's hollow because it wasn't your company.
It just like, it was motivating. I was like, yes, I saw enough now where I was like, okay, I think I can do this.
You've seen the brass ring, but it's just like not.
Yeah,
it's over there.
And
someone
for
else
context,
is getting it.
Yeah, and for context, people, you can look it up. I mean, Rally for context was a $50-ish million company when it went public. I think 54 roughly in ARR. And for context, Pendo was like, interestingly, way bigger now, but like we're not public, So, but it's like, it's interesting how I thought that was like the thing, and now I'm still trying to get back to it, and we're a good bit bigger, which is crazy to think about.
It's not fair. They it's the further you get, they keep raising the bar. It's like kind of ridiculous in a way, but we're not going to solve that.
Yeah, we're not going to solve that here. So,
what year was this at that IPO?
2013.
Oh, that's when we went public too.
But look, I departed there shortly thereafter. I think the back and forth. Well, one is a Boulder-based company, and I did not live in Boulder. I lived in Raleigh, and I led the Raleigh office here. But to have influence and power, and like, you had to be there a lot, and I honestly took a toll on my family and me. It was just like every week I was getting on a plane, and probably wasn't the best thing for me long term. And part of what I thought is like, hey, if I start a company in Raleigh, I'm more likely to be in Raleigh, which is probably better for my family and for me.
Yeah.
So like the right path is for me to find a way to start a company here and stay here and kind of go more local. So that became my focus. So
cool. So tell us the Pendo founding story. So Eric had come into the story before. Where has he been during the rest of the story?
Our paths just didn't cross. Like, he did his own thing, started a few things, joined a few things. He was in Pittsburgh, then in the Bay Area, back to Pittsburgh. But we were staying in touch. I think we were just kind of looking for the right timing of various things. So when I left, and I took like the whole summer off and like a real good like debrief, I started reconnecting people that I just lost touch with. I mean, I was like running so hard and I was traveling so much. I actually lost touch with Eric for a period of years. That was honestly terrible that I lost touch with someone who's such a close friend. And then Rahul Jain, which is one of the other co-founders, he was actually at a VC who helped me sell 6 Cents to Rally. But once I sold to Rally, I didn't talk to him for 4 years, which is terrible. But so I called him. What's he doing? He's at Cisco. We're chatting about a few things, and then there's this person here locally, Eric Trim, and everyone for years said, "You got to meet this guy, Eric." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm really busy. I'm never here." Blah blah blah. And then I didn't have an excuse of being busy. I wasn't busy, and it was the perfect opportunity. So I ended up having coffee with him at the Morning Times, just a few blocks away.
So did you just leave Rally and just like? Or were you at Rally kind of post IPO, just kind of day chilling, and then
no, I left.
Or you just left? You're like,
okay. I don't multitask.
Yeah. Were you purposely? I'm going to leave and start my own company. I don't know what it is yet. Or did you actually have an inkling?
I left.
A spark that became Pendo.
I left, and I knew the next thing would be starting a company. I didn't know Pendo was going to be it yet. I remember sitting there, just thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to start now? Now, the good news is I came up with the idea of Pendo like almost instantly because at Rally, I had built a homegrown version managed a homegrown version of product analytics there. We had tried in-app messaging there. I'd built some of these things from scratch, and it was painful. It was like completely manual. I was like, this data is really valuable, but it is super painful and expensive to capture. So
this was no longer just the developer. This was like it gets deployed and you see how the customer's using the product.
See how the customers using the product. We would pipe into Salesforce.
Was this in reaction to Google Analytics just wasn't getting it done, or?
Yeah, Google Analytics was not getting it done. You ended up needing to know like what features are people using, which customers are using them, like which user, which customer. To one of the seminal releases I had at Rally. I released this huge product. Like I did like a 4-city roadshow with Jeffrey Moore. I mean, we spent real money on it. I was like, this is going to be amazing. Every customer is going to love it. And then like 3 months after the launch, I get the usage metrics manually, and like no one was using it, and like the features weren't being like whoa, like it was like mind blowing. It was like, how did we not know this? Like we spent so much money on this.
What
release.
did this big PR thing?
Yeah, so
They've got to use the product. What's wrong with these people?
When I realized, like adoption is what really matters, because we're not going to get the revenue if no one touches this thing, and why aren't they touching it? So I started obsessing over this problem. So I think when I left, I had like basically free time to think about what I work on. This became the thing I wanted to work on. So I wrote it down, but then I was like pretty careful. I was like, it's the first idea. I can't fall in love with the first idea. You got to like go through a bunch of ideas. So I did. I had a bunch of consumer ideas. Like
What was a bad consumer idea you came up with?
Is basically, I think
don't say car washing.
No, it's called Neat. It's like one of these, like, I was just tired of all the paper I got as a parent. I was like, can we just like send it in some scanner? Shouldn't it like OCR? So I was experimenting a lot of OCR technologies, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think that problem is probably waiting for AI. I'm sure it's like way easier now. But then like as I started exploring, I realized like I don't know anything about consumer technology. And I met with a VC who he gave me incredibly good advice. He's like, Todd, you may not look at it this way, but if you look at the dollars invested in you or in companies that you worked at as an executive, there's probably at least $100, maybe more $1 million invested in companies you worked at, or in like you, and maybe not you personally, but in some cases maybe. And that's an expensive education. Don't waste it. and he was right. He was right in that, I'm good at a certain thing, and I've been educated in doing, and it's like enterprise B2B tech. And I think knowing what you're good at and sort of like doubling down on that, I think was a powerful reminder. And so that's when I kind of cut out all the consumer examples and really went hard in like Pendo. And I added another B2B idea, which is around financial planning software, like budgeting software, which I actually don't know very little about. And actually, although I am an independent board of a financial planning company now, but at the time, like I was like, I don't know this space very well. But I don't think I would have created Anaplan then. But yeah, that was sort of the idea. So.
Cool. Where did you start to get enough momentum where you got the co-founders in and started selling them on it? And then, at some point I want to understand where the name Pendo came from.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah. Well, look, the co-founders, I had Eric Boda pretty much lined up. He knew we wanted to work together again. He had to wrap up a few things. So that was early. Rahul decided pretty early to come in. So we started pitching investors then. This is before I really spent time with Eric Trone. And like, the vision then was, in my experience, I was pretty passionate about being the CEO. I just like, look, I may be terrible at this job. That's fine. But I think I will have regrets if I don't try it. And I don't want to have regrets in this. I want to really love it. So I was kind of upfront with both Eric and Rahul. I was like, I really want to try this. I feel like I owe it to myself to try it. But I was also amongst those three the most technical. So for a while, I was going to be CEO and CTO, which was, that would have been very weird. And I think we sort of struggled to get, like we had one investor, Core Capital, Will Dunbar, who was just here at our board meeting. So he's still coming to board meetings. He said, I'll write a check for whatever you're doing. So I had one check,
Boom.
Which was good.
Nice.
But I had to fill out the round.
Was he successful through the rally?
Yes.
Okay. So
and
so he knew you. This wasn't just a random dude.
He's like, look, I like what you did there. Anything you do, I will write a check in for the seed round, which is helpful. I'm very helpful, by the way, very helpful. And so I was like, great, thank you. And then I had to fill out the round. So I was talking to people to fill out the round, and we just weren't filling out the round. And it was like, anyway, meet Eric, great coffee. Rahul and I and Eric, but we all kind of convinced him, okay, join this. Then the team looked like me as CEO, him as CTO, and then we had, Eric ran marketing for the bit, and Rahul's been our sort of chief operating, sort of like the ops person. Then it became pretty easy to raise. Not easy to raise money, but we filled the round pretty fast. Then because like Eric is very, very. Look, he's an accomplished CTO, But now you also have two people who are highly technical leading this company, which, I think people liked that story.
VCs don't often leave to just start a company. Like that's a signal that this must be pretty interesting.
Yeah. So I think so that's how that happened. And then, we did close out the seed round.
This was 2014-ish.
Yeah. We closed on December 23rd of 2013. But yes, we would say just January 1st is when we started at the first HQ rally, actually, which is in what was the Brooks Bell space on Hillsborough Street.
The Christmas round. Wow.
Yeah. So, I won't forget that. But now just like $1 million, which now like everyone's like, wow, 4 million's a small seed round. Well, we had $1 million. We do a lot with $1 million. Pendo, the name coming to that is, I'd always thought, again, going back to this continuation of my story, that the goal of Pendo was making sure people got value out of software. So I was like, what's the Latin word for value? It's Pendo. So that's really where it came from. It was really as simple as that. Now we have come to learn since then that Pendo is also Swahili for love.
Thank goodness that went your way.
Yeah, it went
Sometimes
my way.
you find out these things are not what you want them to be.
Sometimes you
You're
do.
like, we've got a problem in this country. Okay.
Yeah. So you'll see us use love a lot now in our marketing and branding. I think you're going to see it more. We have a new CMO. He wants to bring it back more, but I think it's been kind of fun.
So one way of keeping track of this is you had Cerebellum, which was kind of not a win. I'll just use that language.
Yep.
I'm a relentless optimist, but like a pessimist would say, you failed there, and then you started Sixth Sense, and that was kind of a failure in a way.
You can say that.
Why do you keep going? Did that put a chip on your shoulder where you were like,
Yes, of course. Because I believed that we should have wanted Cerebellum, and I don't think it was, look, maybe I could have done a better job convincing the board that a 22-year-old can negotiate a successful transaction, but I definitely felt like it was sort of a little bit out of my control. Because look, we picked the investors. Because maybe that is in my control. We picked investors that weren't good partners. That's on me, and it was on Eric. So I think, yeah, I had a massive chip on my shoulder. I still have a chip on my shoulder. Like I don't think it's going to leave anytime soon. So like
after 10 years and building this, we'll talk about this in a minute, but building into something relatively large, you still there?
Oh yeah. Like I feel like we have a lot to prove still. And I don't, I'm just as hungry as I've ever been. So like, I don't know why, maybe I'm just wired this way as well, but no, I don't feel any level of success. So like, not yet. Maybe I will one day, but I don't feel it today. And I just want to win. Yeah.
Hearing your story, I feel like you've been painstakingly close a couple times, and then just like
something happens.
Getting the
like,
bad board, CEO disagreement kind of thing, a little misalignment. You didn't have the confidence to say, I want to be CEO. It could have gone another, yeah.
I'm going to work as hard as I can until I can't. and because if I don't do that, I'm always going to have this regret. What if I just tried a little harder? Or what if I did this? Or like, I don't want to have that feeling. I don't want to second guess myself later. What if I actually, why didn't I try to do this? Or like, I think I like to say, maybe I believe I'm sort of destined to do this or whatever you want to say. It sounds weird, but I love this, like this job, this work, like high growth tech. I love it. And I can't imagine doing anything else. So yeah, I don't know.
Cool. Our audience is mostly founders, so I'm asking foundery questions because it's hard. Let's say there's a 22-year-old watching this and they're where you were. It's kind of like hard, and let's say they have a failure. It's hard to keep going sometimes. So I find it motivating that you've been able to dust yourself off and get to where you are.
Yeah, I mean, look, the chip in the shoulder is the term that we would use often because I'm like a little angry that we didn't have the success earlier in our life, and here's the other awesome byproduct of that today, which I didn't really appreciate until a few years ago, is to get so close and not get it, and so that gave me two things. One, to realize that I can get close. If I can get close, I probably can get it. So the first thing it gave me is hope. But now, as an older person, it gives me appreciation. Like plenty of people like get in my job and like, oh my God, you run a 900-person company. Is it as fun as when it was when you're running a 5-person company? Aren't you slow moving? Don't you like hate all the meetings? I get that question all the time. And like, do I miss some of the easier times? Do I miss coding a little bit? Of course I miss coding. I love it. And do I love kind of the fun time where I can just kind of like people weren't like paying attention to literally everything I'm doing and like micro analyzing it.
Who's Todd on the phone with right now? Oh my God. What's it mean?
Of course I miss some of those days, but you know what? I really appreciate what we've built. And I appreciate the fact that we built a great company. And is it a perfect company? No. There's plenty of things we have to fix. But I appreciate, like, the grass is not always greener. And I think so being old enough to have appreciation for knowing what you've got, like, I don't want to run out and start some new company. I think we built a really great company and I like working here. And I think it takes a lot of work to get to this point. And I think we have a lot of building to go. Like, I said this to our investors last night, and I had 2 meetings this year with customers / potential customers that were 2 of the best meetings like that I've had in my life in terms of business meetings. Like, I'm meeting with incredibly high-ranking people at huge companies, and we're talking about how we're partnering to like transform their business. And to say that 10 years into Pendo, 11 years in, I had like 2 of the best meetings of my life, feels great. And when I did a day trip to Hong Kong, a day trip. I literally flew to Hong Kong, had a 1-hour meeting, and I flew home.
Did you get back before you left?
Not quite, but close. I had the same crew. This is crazy. The same crew who took me to Hong Kong took me home, and they thought it was crazy that they had me there and back. They said, "You just come for one meeting?" I was like, "Absolutely, I came for one meeting." But you know what? That meeting was the largest transaction we've had in history, which closed actually pretty recently. That was not today's transaction. It was a little while ago, but this month.
Congrats. That was a good meeting.
Good meeting.
That was worth it.
Good meeting. And then the next one, we'll see what it is. That was a few weeks ago, and it was in Japan, but a massive company, one that we've all heard of. Like that jazzes me up, man. Like I love that. Like, do I love all the travel? No, but like, I love the experience, the meetings, and like I know that, oh my gosh, if I'm having these meetings now 11 years in, what am I going to have the next 11 years? We're just getting started. I had 2.
Yeah.
Are we going to have 10 next year? I don't know. Maybe that's the way these things work. Like we're just telling a story downstairs of the 4-minute mile. You know, before someone had broken a 4-minute mile, no one had done it. Then the next year, 13 people did it? Mm-hmm. Like, Pendo, that's what it's like all the time. Once you do something, you realize we can do it again, and then you're going to have it amplified the next time. And that's what I look forward to.
Yeah.
Hitting a new goal.
And at those meetings, you learn how they're thinking about it. And then you can reflect all that back into the marketing, the sales team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that. This is going to be a weird interview because you probably spend 95% of your time talking about Pendo. But I actually I think that's like really well covered ground. So I kind of like want to just flash forward, so then we'll skip 10 years. So you start Pendo.
Yep.
10 years later, 11 years later. To the extent you can talk about it, and I covered some of it in that article, but so you've mentioned 900 people. We're sitting in your building here. You've got 4, 6 floors here, some 5.
Yeah,
Five floors. You've obviously, just making it this long is impressive, but you've got a very large revenue scale, obviously, to have that many people. What else? What are some other highlights? And then give us a very quick Pendo update.
Look, I mean, I'm not going to lie. These were tough years. I mean, a lot of people, 2021 was a gold rush of IPOs, tech IPOs specifically, one of the largest years in history. And then we went to nothing, like a tech IPO oasis,
but then to get to 21, you had to survive COVID, which is hard.
Correct. But we would have been a company that you would have thought would have gone public in 2022. And then, obviously with the macroeconomic changes, the end of zero interest rate period, then it got hard for companies to raise capital, which we actually had enough capital, so it didn't necessarily affect us, but it affected our customers, the companies we're selling to. So then that affects some of your growth rates. And then because we're worried a little bit about the capital market environment and raising capital, we need to get efficient fast. And I think our team, kudos to my team. They did an excellent job. I would say January, maybe February of 2022, we put a hiring freeze on. This actually really helped the business. Doesn't feel good to do that, but for a company that had been growing their headcount, the previous year, we doubled our headcount. Go from doubling your headcount to a headcount freeze is crazy shift in momentum. Mm-hmm. But you got to credit our teams. There was no hey Todd, why are we doing this? Or they got on board fast. We started doing things like introducing AR per employee, which is an efficiency metric. We had to educate the company what efficiency was because it was all about high growth. But we did that year. So 2022 was a year of shifting the culture. And then in 2023, we drove that efficiency. We announced this already, ended in 2023, generating cash for the first time in a quarter, which to go from burning like a lot of money to generating cash is a crazy transformation in essentially under 2 years. And a lot of companies haven't been unable to do that, and we did it. So I'm very proud of that. But that came at a cost. We ran a lot of experiments. It did, obviously our growth rate was hindered by this. And as you know, to take a company public, you need to be growing at a certain pace. So this year's a year of acceleration. And and we said this at the Analyst Day, and I've said it before, we are accelerating. And guess what, folks? Accelerating a company of our size is hard. It's just hard. It's hard doing it when you're small, but it's really hard doing it our size. So we're feeling that now. It's work. I'm working as hard this year. I'm traveling more than probably any year in the company history. And we're 11 years in. So look, if you think you're an entrepreneur, things get easier. They may not. Like, did I forecast like zero interest rates going away? We're like, no, I don't think I did. No, I don't think many people did, to be quite honest. But look, I think we're doing a really good job. And
you didn't forecast M&A being totally locked up?
Did not do that. I did not forecast, the SEC, the Federal Trade Commission blocking every deal. Yeah. So like there's a lot of things I didn't forecast. But you do the best you can, and I think our team's doing a really, really good job. And part of it is because I still believe in the market's massive. You have to believe, is your TAM, is your total addressable market huge? Ours is huge. It's unlimited. Like, we tell basically everyone who uses software. That's everyone. So and we're seeing that. We're closing really interesting company logos, some of which I can talk about, some of which I can't, but across everything. Like United Airlines came to Pandemonium and talked about how we helped their pilots navigate the CrowdStrike outage. When I started Pendo, I don't think I thought that like United Airlines would be buying us to do really anything. But it feels good. And then you realize, oh my gosh, if one airline can buy us, all of them can buy you. So now we have 4 or 5 airlines that we're talking to right now.
And if you can get a little chunk of the Fortune 500, why can't you get all of it?
Yeah. So I think, wow.
I feel like your TAM has really expanded. Like you started and there was like, there's these little pools of developers at companies building stuff. And then, now everything's so digital. Your timing was perfect this time, where you got in right at the right time. It wasn't too early. You kind of Goldilocks that. But then it's, your TAM has expanded very dramatically lately. So, go to any organization like, Verizon or American Airlines or, pick any kind of operating business. They've got software everywhere. They've got PMs. It's all over the place. They need to standardize on this stuff. So I can imagine you probably have got these little balkanized deals, and then you get like a little department over here, and then suddenly you're starting to talk about these like, let's go do a company-wide standardize on this thing.
That's exactly what it is, and it also it's actually challenging. It's not as cookie cutter and easy. Like all these use cases are a little bit unique, so it's not all over. So like it is like working at Pendo. It's hard. I mean, it's not an easy job. I mean,
well, then suddenly, I'm just going to pick like a random telecom signs up for a big deal, and they expect it to work a certain way. And the software was designed for smaller teams. You've got to the CEO is going to want to see a view, and this. So there's with all these deals comes a whole nother turn of the crank. Yeah, and you look at other things like, and you'll see this in the Analyst Day, was what we talked about. We also went from basically one product company to a multi-product company. And now you got to teach sales reps how to sell multiple products, and you have to do land and expand deals for multiple products. That new product motion is a whole new motion. Then we have to build the operational controls, because Wall Street wants to know how many customers have 2 or more products, 3 or more products, 4 or more products. So like these are all things we had never built. So we built all that, and now we're doing international markets, which is a good amount of work. And then of course, last but not least, like now we have AI, which AI is set to be on par with cloud, mobile. You name in terms of large technology shifts. So, now we're having conversations around innovator's dilemma and how we navigate it ourselves. We have a large revenue stream. We have to take care of customers, and we have to innovate in what the world's going to look like. We're having meetings where we're like, hey, if I was building Pendo today, and I'm a startup trying to disrupt us, what would that look like? And how do we build that thing? Because that thing could be the thing that disrupts us in a few years, but we don't want to let that happen. We want to be the ones disrupting ourselves. So how do we do that? So. Yeah. I had the other argument. So someone came, so I actually had a discussion about this, and everyone's like, oh my God, what's Pendo going to do about AI? Everyone's just going to roll their own Pendo. I was like, I don't think so. I actually think it's awesome for you guys, because now everyone's coding. So like you went from, these little people that learned how to code, then it went into all the company, everything had to be digital. Now everyone's generating scads of code. It's going to be really bad code. It's going to be all over the place. It's going to be off target, and they're going to need more Pendo. So I kind of view it almost like I see your argument, and you should definitely be paranoid.
But I actually net out that it's pretty positive for you
Yeah.
guys, because the amount of products that are going to be kind of coming out faster and faster, the stuff you guys nail and make sure works is going to be that much more important.
Yeah, I actually that was
It's going to be a signal noise problem that you're going to be the solution to.
Yeah,
that I don't think's ever existed.
That's, to me, I do think one of our big bets is that and that is what we're seeing today. Like if you believe, like one of the big constraints in the economy has been the number of software developers, and AI attacks that constraint, then we're going to see just a heck of a lot more software. And if you see a lot more software, yeah, there's going to be a bell curve of software. Some's going to be great, someone's going to be terrible. And Pendo's like hopefully the decision point for like what's good and what's bad and how do we make it better. So yeah,
it'll go through a Gartner adoption. Like there's going to be this like moonshot of software code being generated, and then it's going into the trough of disillusionment. And then like people are going to be like, whoa, we wrote all this code that was terrible. What are we doing?
Yeah, and people are already using us to like help their users understand how to use the new AI and how to like provide qualitative things. So I think there are a lot of, I'm also a tech optimist, but like I believe that it's only going to help our business. But I have to as well, put on my disruptor hat and make sure that we handle that use case as well. But I think ultimately it's going to be good for Pendo. But it is, but it's big and it's transformational and it's very interesting times.
What if So another way of looking at AI is the gold dust / gold nuggets is the data. You guys have to have the most user data. What if, why can't you have a Pendo AI that is the best at generating code because it knows the user data? And
that's where I think that to me is what the potential unlock that we're looking at is like, how do we take our data and put it in a form usable for AI? Because like we know, like if you're trying to build an agent, we know everything someone does inside an application. Mm-hmm. I
know where to put the button, the color, don't do this flow, do this flow. If you do a scrolly thing, people won't know. You know all that.
Yeah. So I think it's super exciting time. But so where was it? So where we are today? Like I'm building. I want to build. Like I was just with our product team before this. I'm getting more involved. I'm getting involved in our AI initiatives. I think if anything, if you look at the last few years where I've been spending most of my time building out go to market. I've been shifting my focus recently to focus much more on product. And I have a thing, and I think it's maybe been reported on before, but I move my desk based on wherever I feel like my attention is needed. And I was on sales floor 18 here for a long time, years. And I just moved to product. I moved to 16. Probably about 3 or 4 months ago. I just felt like I needed to be closer to what was going on down there, and I think it's been a good move. And I think I'll be there for a while. I think it's the place to be. I think I'm a natural builder, and I think we've got new sales leadership. I think they're executing well. I think I feel good about where that department's moving, and it's time for me to get back to building. So
there's a lot of talk. There's a couple things. So there's founder mode. I kind of find that a little bit boring. I don't know if you want to. So this all blew up. I don't know if
I'm well aware of founder mode.
You're so myopic. I don't know what you see in that side world sometimes. The chess key thing kind of blew up.
Look, there are parts of founder mode which I think are really important lessons from this, and it did hit me a little bit because of what was happening here at Pendo and how I was feeling internally. I think you come out of COVID. You got this like whole hybrid work thing. I mean, one of the things that's been most stressful about the COVID thing is the in-office culture piece. And if you knew Pendo pre-COVID, like if you walked in our office in Raleigh, you just felt the culture. And during COVID, everything was great, but then eventually we sort of lost that. And
kind of like culminates around the office, and like it's been hard to get that back post-COVID for everybody.
Honestly, it was kind of like making me sad, like and despondent. Like if I'm thinking about what keeps Todd engaged at Pendo for the long term, like why do I want to come to work every day? I want to engage with amazing people. Like, and at the end of the day, if this culture changed into something that I don't want to work at, that's probably bad for the company. And when I realized it was moving in a direction that I didn't like. Now, when I was asking people for advice, they're like, "Oh no, but be careful. People are sensitive. Like this is a very hot topic. It's loaded. When we do surveys, this is what it says." And I was like, you know what? I actually don't care. And it took courage for me to say, you know what? Screw it. No, we're going back and we're mandating it. And this is just the way it's going to be. And because if this culture ultimately is someplace I don't want to work out, that is probably worse than the handful of people who don't want to come back to the office. And I think I started not listening to people, which is I listen to plenty of people, folks. So like, but I think getting the courage as a founder to say, this has to change has been something that's been near and dear to me. We just changed our core values. We have we're a big values driven organization and we just changed them. Last time we changed our core values with this whole committee, we took 6 months. This time, 3 founders got in a room and said, these are our values. Founder
mode, hashtag founder mode.
Yeah. So the question is, why do we do that? And it's just a feeling like things had gotten off course.
Well, if you ask a committee to design a horse, you come out with a camel.
It's
very hard for a committee to decide the direction of a company.
We just had gone a direction that I felt like it didn't look and feel like the Pendo that I knew. And there's this classic Andy Grove quote from the Intel days, and Intel's of course making the news because like for their bungling for the past few years. But Andy Grove says this: "What would our successors? If our successors walk in this room and take over this company, what would they do differently?" And I was looking at our values. I was complaining about a few things at the company, complaining about a few things. And I started thinking, I was like, well, I can fix this. I can fix this. I don't have to wait for my replacement to come in. I can just be that person and just make this change. I can be unafraid to change our values. And if I want to change them, I can change them. But I think I actually came to this, like, by the way, this awareness on my own before I read Founder Mode. But the Founder Mode came out right around the same time. So somehow it all got attached to it in people's minds that somehow I read some podcast and like I decided this. Truth is, I did come to this realization on my own. I was like, and I do most of my thinking on long runs. So I was on a run and I was like, hold on, actually I could change this. And it's very, very, very invigorating for me. But having the courage to change the values when if you look at our engagement surveys, they're high. Like you're like we're growing. Like this is not like the company's not broken. I just know it can be better. I know in my heart it can be better.
Right. And you, as a founder, it's
I feel like I had to change it. I feel like my replacement would change it. So like, why am I not doing that? So these are the things that I think about in my head. And so we rolled that out, and I think it was a little controversial, some pieces of it, but I think by and large it's been really positive. And like the company's like, I got really positive responses from a bunch of people, like they kind of feel fired up that we're getting more involved. And I think the concept of founder mode isn't a horrible one. Some people have abused it, I'm sure, but like people abuse everything. So
yeah, I think Chesky does a good job of explaining it's not micromanaging; it's staying involved. Like you're moving to the 16th floor to be involved in product. That's that's not you micromanaging. That's you realizing there's a point in time here with the world changing that's the most important thing. And
exactly.
You're not going to micromanage, but you need to have your finger on that, or else this AI thing, may pass you by. It may disrupt you. So yeah, I don't think of it as that micromanagement kind of thing.
Yeah, I struggle with the word micromanaging because I struggle with the word like if you see someone at your company doing like the wrong thing, like do you stop it or you let them do it? Is that micromanaging? I don't know. I feel like it's good coaching. Like, hey, that's the wrong thing. Some people make bad decisions. That's okay.
What's presented as this binary, or like either nice or an a-hole. And there's actually a middle one where you're like, hey, I know you were on this sales call and you said this, but that's like not how we don't promise stuff to the customer we can't deliver. Or you've got to inject yourself there. You don't have to be, you're not like you're fired. Now some, like a Jobs or an Elon kind of do that, but that's just right? But
they do. I joked with the people all the time. Have I ever just walked in and fired someone? Because no, like my job's to teach and coach. Is like.
Now, if you've coached them twice and you're on your third one, you're like, nah, I'm not really sure getting this.
It's still not usually me doing the firing. It's usually someone else. But suggest to that person, hey, you should look at this. But
what's going on over here?
Yeah.
Okay. A couple founder lessons. So you've talked about transparency. You guys have an amazing culture. There's a lot online that you do. So we have that. The other thing I've noticed, I didn't get to go to Pandominium, but I knew several folks that went. Your customers are like crazy passionate about you guys. Like, what's the secret sauce of that? Like, how do you get such engaged? Like, so how many people did you have? This is your trade show you have every year.
Yeah, Pandemonium at 1,400 customers, somewhere in that range. With Pendozers, it's like adds like another 400 people. So it's like practically 2,000 people. And it's like, we call it a product festival. It's treated like a festival. It's indoor, outdoor. It's one of my if not my favorite week. There's 2 great weeks of the year, company kickoffs. So we do get the entire company together in Raleigh in February. I mean, it's an amazing time. That feels great. And then Pandemonium. Those 2 weeks, amazing weeks. They're always here. Look, so the question is, it really starts back at MBNA. One of MBNA's like mottos, think of yourself as a customer. To back that up, they had this concept of 2-ring pickup where you have to pick up the call within 2 rings, which is back when they would be able to sell phones and like rings. And but I used to watch people, like grown people, and I was again 14, 15 years old, dive across the desk to pick up because their bonuses, like they measured every phone in the entire company and they did a 99% rating. And if you hit this, you got a quarterly bonus that was pretty sizable. So people would dive across desks to get this thing.
Yep.
And
incentives and measure what you care about.
And so then you realize, wow, this company cares about customers. And that really, really hit me. Now, I didn't really get a chance to scratch that itch. I didn't set the values at Cerebellum, we didn't do it, although we had really good values there. But then at 6 Sense, we didn't really have values the way I would have wanted to. So when we started Pendo, I was like, I want values and I want customer to be a top value. And we talked about what that meant and what I expected. I was like, we're going to do crazy things for customers. We're going to make it so they love us. And if that means getting an engineer on the phone, we're going to hire engineers and get on the phone. Plenty of people don't. Like, there are people that I've worked with engineers, great engineers who like, no, I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm not going to be in my cube. We don't hire those people here. We hire people that if we have to, we will put them on the phone. So that's been part of our, like, what's different about us since sort of day one. But we will do extreme things for customers to make them successful because we really, really care. And I think that when you read our Series A, like when we did our Series A, you're like, where does this company come from? But it's because references, they kept hearing about us from other people because we took care of customers. And
probably their portfolio. Their portfolio companies like, we love this Pendo product. Like, what is this Pendo product?
That was the magic. And like Series A, Series B, Series C, like you can read all these decks. They said wonderful things, not just about our product, but about our team. And you go to Pandemonium here, great product, great team, great event. Those are like the 3 things you hear. So it feels really, really good. I think we hire people that really genuinely care about customers, that want to make them successful, and we will almost always do the right thing by them. And I think it's a core value. So I think it's something that we really care about. We have an NPS channel that some people don't like NPS, whatever. But
I like it. I think it's very deterministic.
And when you get, and this is where it's valuable. Like the number's valuable, but the values, we take action on it. Someone gives us like a 6 or 7, like anything less than a 9 or a 10, we're probably going to get on the phone with that customer and talk to them. We take that feedback incredibly seriously. Sometimes I get on the phone with these people, and by the way, they're a little shocked that like I'm reading them and getting on the phone. That's when they know, like, okay, this company must care. If the CEO of a company this size is getting on the phone with a $20K deal or whatever, like, and I will. I have answered support tickets. I've answered support tickets on weekends, even recently in the last few years. So
it's not only the customer. It sends a message to everyone in this building. If we get a low NPS, Todd's going to call them. If I'm the account manager on that
we care.
I don't want that to be the first time they've heard from someone at Pendo in a while. But it also shows that you're very passionate about this, and part of leading is like leading by example. And you can set up all these things, but the best way to illustrate them is to do it.
Exactly.
And live the values.
And no one is too big in this company to do like the hard work, like getting on the phone and apologizing to a customer, or getting on a phone or like fixing it, working day and night. I think we put ourselves in our customers' shoes a lot. I think we've done a really good job of that throughout the years. And I think that's what engenders this sort of like love, for the business. And I think we got to keep that magic. And that's one of the things as a founder, you always think like, how do I keep the magic? Part of my job is holding on to what's great about our culture, but knowing we have to change some things because we're getting much bigger. And like, you got to balance both those things out. But I love that part. The board joked because there's a thing, it's on LinkedIn, and like there was a customer who really liked my jacket that I was wearing at Pandemonium, and she asked, "Hey, I really like your jacket." And I just gave her the jacket off my back, which she was excited about. And it was awesome. It was like honestly a great.
It wasn't a sports coat. It was a Pendo jacket.
Pendo jacket.
Yeah,
right? It was like a vintage one or OG jacket. You can't get. It was like from several years back, something like that. But it was a cool jacket. But look, like awesome. Like she's probably going to be a Pendo fan for a long time because that is a cool experience. And that's a great customer for us. So that was.
You can figure out how to make a retro line of Pendo swag.
We probably can.
I have faith in you.
Yeah, but like this is the kind of stuff where I think we like to go above and beyond, and yeah, it's part of who we are. It's not just a tagline. So,
do you still interview everyone that gets hired?
I do not interview everyone. Well, when JR, who now runs the people team for us, when she came in originally as head of recruiting, that was like we came up with an agreement on when I interview, when I don't. So I do not interview everyone. I do approve every offer though. And I have rejected offers like at the approval stage, which definitely gets people's attention when it gets rejected. So, but we'll have conversations around certain things. I do read every scorecard. If I don't like the way the scorecards are written, I'll have them rewritten.
Without specifics, like what would cause you to reject something like you just don't feel like the bar is high? Like Amazon has this concept of bar raisers.
I know.
Is it like you don't feel like the bar is high enough on that one?
I don't think the bar is high enough. Sometimes you'll see in like the actual notes, hey, this person didn't do great on this technical assignment. And you'll see another person questions about their technical thing, and then somehow it still skates by and like comes to me for approval. And I'm telling people between the hiring manager and me, like because there's several execs, like, did you miss this?
I see 6 yellow flags here and a little pink one.
What is going on? They're like, whoops, this one. Some people just get into the habit of clicking the approve button and they're not reading it to the level that
we really want to fill this rec and it's been open for 6 months.
So they know I read every single thing. So now they pay attention to every single thing. And that's how you build habits. I think, yeah, I mean, you can probably tell that's how I do, like I do the MPS thing this way. I do the scorecards this way. If you get these fundamentals right in your company, so many other things work. Like when you have happy customers, yeah, it's easier to sell to them. Like when you have great employees, yeah, it's easier to hit your goals. Like I'm a first principles thinker. Like if I get the basics right, like the rest is a lot easier. I can I don't sit around in my office and come up with strategy. I mean I could, but that's not really going to help the company. Yes, there are times I have to think strategically, but I think
if you're going to shoot a rocket to the moon, physics is your first principle. But for businesses like ours, it's customer is the first principle. I always whenever I'm lost, yeah. I'm like I've got to talk to customers. That's always my North Star, and I feel like you obviously do that too.
And look, as I tell the company every time, and as I learned this from the TogetherSoft days, we are a software company. We have 2 jobs. We manufacture software and we sell it. If you are not manufacturing it or selling it, you're helping someone who is. Period.
Yep.
That is your job, to help someone who is doing one of those 2 things. So we remind people that for a while when we were a tiny startup, I focused mostly on those 2 levers. How many engineers do we have? How many salespeople do we have? And everything in the middle is sort of squishing and as few as possible. It's generally the role. But now we have a bunch more people. But yeah, yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Last question: if let's say a founder comes up to you, what kind of words of wisdom do you have for founders these days? You've been at this for quite a while now. This founder gig.
Yeah, I mean, geez.
We've hit on some of them: the transparency, how you do the culture. Anything else that you can think that you haven't covered?
I think we didn't talk about it because maybe I talked about it already, but product market fit is a good thing. You probably heard my first 2 startups did not get the product market fit. The one difference, really, you could say, one, it's probably more than one, but is we obsessed over product market fit early. We didn't rush things. We didn't rush it. We got the product market fit. So don't rush it. Get the product market fit. We picked really good investors as well. It's probably a second thing.
How'd you know you were at product market fit? What was the signal that you said, I think we're there? Do you remember?
There wasn't an exact moment. Oh, at first there was an exact moment. There was one actually later, which was pretty funny. But look, I think we went from almost nothing to $1 million in ARR in a very short amount of time. It was pretty clear by mid-year that year that something was good was happening.
We're onto something.
Yeah. But I probably still, because I have a chip on my shoulder, probably still wouldn't have declared me having product market fit at that point. It's really funny. Years later, I would say, I think it was just coming out of COVID. Yeah, we were just getting together, the board. I was in New York City at a board dinner. And I was talking about how, because remember, after COVID, we had a nice acceleration in the market. And we had this startup team. And they were doing same day closes. And we were a premium product. They talk to they cold call someone, they get them on the phone, they sell them that day. And I was mentioning this we had a number of them then. I mentioned it to our board, and they're like, Todd, that's called exceptional product market fit. It's what it's called. Like when you do a same day close on a product that's like $12,000, $20,000, you just have exceptional product market fit.
You're over the target. Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I guess you're right. We probably do have really good, at that point, then it really hit me how good it was. Cause I hadn't thought about it then. So that feels good. So that's a piece. And then the other, I think, and I give this advice sometimes, but when it comes to like raising capital or not raising capital, one of the things I see young entrepreneurs, to me, worry far more about is like their size of the slice of the pie versus like the size of the overall pie. Hopefully, if anything, like you're getting from the Pendo story is that I want to grow a massive pie, and that's winning for me. And like my slice will be fine. Like don't worry about me. But I am going to literally not stop until I can build the biggest pie possible. And if I do that, a lot of people win, and that actually motivates me more than like, oh, well, I gave up this much in this round for this. Oh my gosh, that's like scarcity thinking. I don't have scarcity thinking. I want to have more expansive thinking. So that permeates how I like basically approach nearly every problem. Like I want to create a massive pie. And so I'm always trying to think bigger and push boundaries. So that's probably a big piece. So I'd encourage that as an entrepreneur. And then, the other thing I'm seeing now in 2024 that I didn't see, like my cohort of startups that started around the time Pendo, like a lot of the CEOs are becoming exec chairpersons or leaving or retired or being asked to leave. And so that's kind of a weird thing I'm going through. And like a lot of peers, like good friends, good peers, great companies. And I'm talking to a bunch of them, like, what happened? Or how are you feeling? And people are tired. I mean, like these last 2 years have been hard. We went from like go-go days to non-go-go days. And I think of that.
You seem pretty spry to me.
I feel great. This
is after how long is your board meeting? Like 3 hours, 5 hours?
Yeah, I actually feel great. I don't know how I feel great, but I do feel great. And I'm fortunate. And maybe it's the chip, maybe it's something else. Maybe something's like giving me this energy, but it is an interesting time in my career when I'm seeing a lot of my peers, and there's going to be a next generation. And so it's interesting navigating all that personally and reflecting on it. I'm meeting new people because my generation's, some of them retiring, which is kind of an odd thing. So
I'll solve it. Don't do it as boring. You just like every quarter you get to see the business and you're just like, wow, I wish I was doing it. Just keep building.
Yeah.
Keep building, Todd.
I love what I do.
Don't stop. That's what's energizing. Your building is amazingly fun.
Yeah, and I work with great people. Yeah, and that was the other thing about the board stuff and the invest. We just have a really good group of people. I genuinely like them. Like last time we took them to a Hurricanes game. By the way, everyone was like the most fun. They won, by the way. Kudos, Canes. Fun game. Like it's fun. It was interactive. It was really, really nice. And I still Neeraj from Battery invested in 2015. It's just great to some of the management teams, he and Rob Ward, he invested in 17. They've seen everything. They know this company very well and just like really supportive, good people. And I'm very fortunate because I don't have drama from my board. I mean, geez, it's hard enough doing this stuff. Without that, you have that. I do feel bad for founders that have that. So pick wisely, get good people, focus less on like the prestige of the firm and your post-money valuation, and focus a lot more on, are these really good human beings you're going to want to hang out in board meetings with when things go tough?
For 10 years.
You'll have something tough happen in those 10 years. And like going for the premium valuation or going for like the top tier firm name because you want to say you raised money from ABC, like cool for you, but I am totally comfortable just making sure that good people are investing in us, and I like working with them, and they're good partners on me on this journey. And that to me is more important. And I think that's how I've run it. And I think that feels like the right answer, but yeah.
Cool. Thanks for your time. Thanks for letting us go over. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know I'll be personally cheering for you to get up on the podium there. So
thank you.
I'm going to be 100% behind that. So hopefully you get there soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
For more Tweener content, check out the Triangle Tweener Times Substack at tweener.substack.com. For more Tweener content, check out tweenertimes.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon on Triangle Tweener Talks.